How did the Browns thump the Dolphins 31-6 on Sunday? Lance Reisland is here to show and tell. We do it next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Lance Reisland makes his weekly visit on the show. Excited to have him as we get a chance to break down a Browns win. It feels good to say that. We'll look at the offensive side, what was working for, especially that run game led by Quinshon Judkins. The defensive side, some of the cool, unique ways that Jim Schwartz did some things differently in order to help produce a win against Miami. And we'll dive a little bit into the scouting report on next week as we get ready for the Browns matchup with the New England Patriots, which is going to be a tough one. But first, I do want to thank you for being on every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Lance, a lot of good that I think came out of this game on Sunday. Obviously, on the offensive side in particular, I think there's probably still a little bit. There were some things left to be desired. I think, especially with how the second half kind of went, didn't really produce much in that second half, other than the scores that were gifted to you by the defense. But I think there was a lot to like in terms of just the mentality and the way that Kevin Stefanski went about calling that game and really leaning on, in particular, the run game, which we know is a strength for this team.
Well, Judkins had 25 carries, which is really, really good. Hopefully that continues to go from this point on. I will say this. I don't think, for me, I always look at it differently. I look at it through a coach's eye, and whatever you got to do on that day to win, it doesn't matter what's coming up. It doesn't matter what, there's always things to address, but there is no such thing as a bad win. So what I like what they did is they figured out, how to remove the clock. They were conservative with Dillon. I thought he missed some throws, and I thought he made some good throws, but I thought he played with great composure. The wind was not really good. The weather was bad. All those things considered, I thought he played, I talk about a rookie. He seemed to handle it much better than Tua, who obviously just signed the big contract. So I thought he did some good things. I would say he's solid, maybe not as impactful as you would hope he would be. Obviously, I'm high on him, but, you have to start making some plays. But I don't really care about that. He did what he had to do in that game to win that game, and then you move forward because it's all about winning on that day.
Yeah, I think that's well said, especially when the weather was what it was. I think it was kind of one of those just survive in advance type deals where it's, you kind of throw the game plan out the window and whatever's going to work for you that day to get the job done is what's going to work. So, we'll dive into Dillon a little bit more here coming up. But I did want to start because, the star of the day on offense was obviously Quinshon Judkins and the tremendous effort that he displayed in sort of leading this rushing attack and helping the Browns early on, especially get in the end zone a couple times. We'll start with the big touchdown score, the 46-yarder, after it looked like the Browns are going to be off the field here, right? The play right before this. And then the Dolphins commit a penalty on third down that kind of gifts them a first down. And then one play later, we get a house call from Quinshon Judkins. What did you see on this play, and how did it kind of come together where Quinshon was able to break it off for the big touchdown score?
Well, you basically got a two tight end set here. They did a lot with Whippler in the game at a tight end. Obviously, with Njoku, Whippler did a lot of good things at that tight end, securing the edge and blocking some tight end stuff. So if you look from from the play side where the ball is going to the opposite side, you got the tight end Whiteheart. He's going to base block on that defensive end. In a normal power, the fullback would kick out the end, and Whiteheart would either release inside or outside to the force player, which I have marked with the F. This is just a variation of that, where Whitehart's going to take the end, and then Fannin, who has struggled a little bit with his blocking, he's going to take the force player. Now, as you work down to, you're going to see Teller and Levinston had a great deuce block on that 3 technique to the second linebacker in the box. They don't care what their names are, where they are. They just count numbers. So they're going to deuce block to the number 2 linebacker in the box. Center Posick, 55, he's going to block back on the nose. Batonio's going to pull, and he's going to block the number one linebacker, and he's going to skip pull. What that means is he's going to keep his eyes on the number one linebacker. And if you remember from the game, he makes that block in the backfield because once that number one linebacker reads that double team by Levinston and Teller, he flies up and see gap. That's his job. And he did a really nice job of it. So Batonio's going to pull and kick him out. And actually Fannin blocking Force and Batonio kicking out that number one linebacker happens kind of at the same time. Now on the backside, you're going to get the backside tackle, Robinson and Whippler at the backside tight end. They're just going to step inside first to make sure no one gets those gaps, and then just Hins outside, basic concept. And then, Judkins is the key right here. He's going to make the free safety miss. And that's kind of that Nick Chubb everybody talks about.
Yeah.
Chubb do. That's what it is. It's second level breaking tackle. So really good play here. Simple power play. They started pulling those guards again. I know you and I have been talking about that. I liked what I saw, and Batonio pulling and Teller blocking down is always a good thing for this offense.
Yeah, and I think what this play highlights too, on a day where you didn't have David Njoku, obviously, the use of the extra linemen and I know I've texted you about this during the games before, like how they bring out a guy like Whippler, how they sometimes bring out two tackles at the same time. Like they clearly made it a point, especially with the weather being what it was, that they were going to lean on, hey, we're going to come out with some of these heavier sets. We're going to utilize these guys in different ways. And it worked beautifully on this play. And you're 100% right about Quinshon. That was one of those moments where you felt like you were watching, Nick Chubb 2.0. I don't want to dub him that just yet because those are some lofty expectations. But it was a phenomenal play by him to sort of read it, get into the secondary, make a guy miss, and then just off to the races. It was the perfect combo of, I talked about comparing his game to Kareem Hunt and how he's such a physical runner, but you also saw that breakaway speed and sort of the elusiveness that Nick Chubb brought to the table on that play. It was beautifully executed, and it was the first of 3 touchdowns he scored on the day. I'll quickly get us to the next slide here because Kevin revealed after the game, Lance, as you know, that he sort of drew up some of this Wildcat stuff with Tommy Rees and Mike Bloomgren on Thursday night, understanding what the weather forecast was kind of calling for. And they utilized it a couple times, leads to 2 touchdowns for Quinshon. But what did you see on the Wildcat plays? And what did you like about the way that the Browns try to use that to their advantage, just getting the ball in Quinshon's hands immediately?
Well, if you take a look here, so they got 7 linemen in the game with Jenkins and Whippler in the game. So they got 7 linemen. They got 2 tight ends. They actually have Whiteheart at the tailback, which tells you they're just drawing it up, right? And then they got Fannin at the wing there, Judkins in the Wildcat. So they got 7 linemen, 2 tight ends, a quarterback, and then not in the picture is just a receiver out to the left, obviously, just to kind of spread out the formation. But what you get is the Dolphins come out in a 6-2 look, and they have their 4 down linemen inside. Again, really simple concept here. It's very similar to power. They're going to block down on the front side. So you're going to get Jenkins and you're going to get Levinston with a great tray block now because that's a tight end and tackle, again, to the number 2 linebacker. The number 77, Teller's going to block down. Posic's going to block back. Now, Batonio pulled last time and kicked out. Pulled and wrapped in. Now he's going to pull and he's going to kick out the defensive end. He doesn't have the number 1 linebacker. That number 1 linebacker belongs to Fannin. Now, Whiteheart's going to cross the face of Judkins and he's going to keep 21. You see 21 I have with the arrow going outside. But the rules stay the same for the offensive lineman. The front side, they're going to double to the 2-backer. Everyone else is going to block down. And the guy wrapping, one guy's going to kick out and one guy's going to wrap and get to the number 1 linebacker. The rules never change. That's why you can implement this stuff as long as the backfield can handle the action. So, again, really simple concept, big personnel, did a really nice job of everybody blocking their rules. You got, like I said, Teller blocking down, Batonio pulling is always a good thing. He did a nice job kicking out the end here. Judkins did a nice job of following Fannin up in the hole.
As a coach yourself, how did you like Kevin sort of implementing this Wildcat stuff into the repertoire this week? Especially, I thought it was kind of ironic he did it against the team that obviously started the Wildcat all those years ago.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's funny. In the pregame show, I was talking about one of McDaniel's real faults to me is that he does not adjust to weather. He is a dome Southern Florida guy. What I mean by that, he stays with everything the same, and I don't think you can do that. So this is, for me, is just an adjustment. So if you look right now, the 7 offensive linemen, the Fannin, Judkins, even though he's getting from a different spot, they all run this play from a different formation. So no one is really, besides Whiteheart, is doing anything different. It's just the idea of how can we be safe down here without a lot of ball handling, getting in a power run set. It's not only a couple guys are doing the different things. The linemen are all doing the same thing. So I liked it. I like the fact that they were underneath center a bunch. I liked the fact that they adjusted to the weather, and the Dolphins didn't. And I think it showed. Kevin had a really good plan, and as much criticism as he's taken, they got a really good win. And I don't want to, I've told people, I don't care who they played. They needed a win, and they got it, and that's important.
Yeah, that's well said. We'll get into that a little bit more coming up. One other play we wanted to highlight on offense, and this one, I specifically asked you for this one, Lance, because I thought that there were some really nice plays made by Dillon Gabriel when he was outside the pocket. So this came with about 14 seconds left in the third quarter. I'll let you sort of take it from there, but it was about 14 seconds left in the third quarter, and it was what I think was probably Dillon's best pass of the day. But what sort of unfolded on this play as he finds Jamari Thrash on sort of a rollout situation?
Well, 2 things happen here, right? So you get a double mug. So I have the 2 backers in solid, right? The 2 backers inside. And when you hear the term double mug, the Browns do it a lot with Schlesinger and Bush, right? You see those 2 linebackers inside. So now you have a 6-man front. The key to this play is Jerome Ford. The center, Posick, is going to slide to his right, and he's going to block the linebacker to the right. And Ford has a tough block because that linebacker has a running start. Ford has to go, we used to say, put your face in the fan there. He does a great job, and they actually get really good protection. Now, on the outside, they do a little bit of chipping to help those tackles, and those ends get real wide. Now, what Dillon does really well is Dillon steps up, really good protection, but he doesn't find anybody. The pocket starts to kind of squeeze on him. He does a nice job of stepping up and then out. And as you can see, they just turned into scramble drill. So the route itself was a basic route where you're going to get Jerry Jeudy's going to run like a deep dig, and Isaiah Bond's going to run a post. It's really just a high-low on that free safety right there. Really simple read. And then you're going to have like a little hunt route by Thrash over the middle. And that hunt route is kind of to make that free safety decide what he's going to do. When the play breaks down, Thrash does a really nice job of getting into scramble drill. And the scramble drill is really simple. If you're short, you go long. If you're long, you go short. If you're in the middle, you go side to side. It's the same for every level of football. So Thrash just changes direction. And Dillon does a really nice job of scrambling and throwing on the run. And as you as I were talking about, Dillon is at his best when he's doing all of it, when he's throwing for multiple launch points from the pocket and outside the pocket, and able to use his feet to help him find the lanes he needs to throw the football.
Yeah, I'm glad we brought that play to the table, Lance, because I sort of starred throughout the game the plays that were either designed for a Gabriel to get out of the pocket or a play like that where he just naturally evaded the pressure and went outside himself. To me, when I watch him play, when I've seen him at his best preseason, his first 3 starts here, it feels like he thrives when he's able to sort of be on those rollout plays. Similar to, I know this is a touchy subject for some people, similar to Baker though, right? When Baker was here with Stefanski, there was a lot of stuff they did with him outside the pocket. And I just feel like I've seen Gabriel thrive in those situations. So to me, I wonder if that's an area that they can sort of tap into to kind of get him, rolling even more and continue to make plays downfield. Because I think that, to me, it feels like that's when he's at his best.
Well, it is. And it's really hard to evaluate him right now because they're not protecting very well. He's missing some throws. They're dropping. There's a bunch of stuff going into this. And the amount of hatred these 2 kids get is kind of shocking to me. And people rooting against the other because they want one to play. And, it's kind of interesting because he has progressed pretty well. Now, I will say this. The one thing that he has to do moving forward is he has to make some more impactful plays. But I'll tell you what, you finish every game. If you don't turn the ball over, you have a chance. And what you saw a defense create some turnovers because the offense didn't turn over. You saw the special teams play a little bit better. And you see what happens if you can dominate special teams and defense and the offense does enough. Now, is he doing enough? Once again, I don't care. I told everybody's I'm not looking towards next week. I'm looking for what needed to be done in that game. And in that game, he was basically don't screw it up, protect the football. The Dolphins can do nothing on offense. We just can't give them a short field. And you do whatever you got to do as a winning quarterback. And for me, he made a lot of winning plays. Now he has to do better when they start facing better teams. But in that particular game, I thought he did a really nice job.
We go to the defensive side of the ball next, and Jim Schwartz, I felt like, was in his bag against the Dolphins. We'll see what Lance thought as well coming up here on the Locked On Browns podcast.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Mazda Crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. With more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else, as of August of this year, they make cars that keep you and your family protected. From footwork to breathe work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings that same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail. From the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery, plus all-wheel drive comes standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence through almost any season, which, let's be honest, if you live in Cleveland like I do, this time of year, you can get all 4 seasons in a single day, so that's exactly what you need in a vehicle. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, we bring Lance back in as we go to the defensive side of the football. And I think there's a lot to talk about here, Lance, in terms of how Jim Schwartz just kind of called this game and some exotic things that he brought to the table. But I want to start with a play early on, actually, that it was actually not a sorry, I was messing around. This was hold on. There it is. Okay. This was actually a play that the defense sort of messed up a little bit. They had a little bit of a blown situation here in terms of allowing Devon Achane, who it felt like to me was the one weapon that the Dolphins knew they had. It felt like the number of times I heard his name called, catching passes, on handoffs, whatever, it was too many to count. They were clearly just going to kind of feed him the ball the same way the Browns were sort of trying to do with Quinshon Judkins. And on this was the Dolphins' opening drive of the game. He breaks off this big run, and it kind of felt like, oh no, like maybe they're going to build some momentum here and get something going against this Browns defense. But there's also at the end of this play something that was really special about it. But what did you sort of see from a breakdown standpoint on this play from the Dolphins early on in the game?
Well, we'll just go with numbers, right? So it's a basic pro set. Got the tight end off to the left there, number 89. And what they're going to do is they're going to run outside zone to the left. And with an extra hat, they got the fullback. Now, the fullback, if you start with 30 is going to attack the line of scrimmage. He's actually going to cut back underneath the quarterback, and he's going to cut off that defensive tackle, which is going to allow that right guard to try to block Devin Bush. Now, what ends up happening here as you watch the play, this is actually just over-aggression by the Browns. So if you can imagine this play going to your left and all those NFL guys, Schlesinger, Bush, they're all running with their hair on fire to their right. So what ends up happening is the tight end, 89, left tackle, the tight end's going to kind of chip and help that left tackle, and then he's going to go right up to Baker. You move inside the left tackle, he's going to wall off Miles. The left guard does a great job. The left guard is the guy who makes the play. Left guard and center, they're going to ace double to Schlesinger. Now, Schlesinger, if he has one weakness right now, it's not really a weakness, is that he'll overrun some things sometimes because he's so aggressive. So if you can imagine Schlesinger down kind of almost by Myles Garrett, that's where he ends up as the play goes along. Then the key to the play here, as you can see, is Devin Bush. Devin Bush ends up taking A gap, and he should be over one gap to get to B gap. So this is really on Schlesinger. It's kind of on Harris, who gets ridden wide by the left guard there in the center. And then Bush goes the wrong gap, all aggressive mistakes. And then if you look at the top there, Waddle does a nice job of blocking on Campbell, but then Campbell does a great job of tracking him down and preventing that touchdown for the fastest guy in the NFL, especially when you talk about, the radar and the miles per hour. So just simply an outside zone that the Browns overran. And when you overrun an outside zone and you lose gap integrity, like both Schlesinger and Devin Bush did, you end up getting a seam. And a guy like Achane is looking for that seam. They did a really nice job of setting the edge on him all day. This is the one time they didn't. They actually set the edge, but he gets in and then out because of the over pursuit by the linebackers.
Yeah, and the reason I want to highlight this play was because it was a like you said, they over pursued and it led to a big gain for the Dolphins. But I also loved the fact, like you mentioned, that Tyson Campbell got back into the play and then chases down Achane, and nobody expected that. Like as soon as Achane broke out, it was like, uh-oh, this guy's gone, because that, like you said, we know how fast he is. To see Tyson Campbell hawk him down and get that stop was pretty remarkable. As a coach, how much do you appreciate a guy not giving up on a play like that and sort of making those hustle plays? I imagine that's something that you highlight when you go back and watch the tape with the team that following week.
Well, we tell them all the time. You see down by the goal line, the NFL, I've learned that a lot in my 4 or 5 years going down there. The red zone becomes a different animal, and you want to make the offense take as many snaps as they can. The more snaps they take, the more mistakes that can happen. So what he did was, by tracking him down, is he said, you're thinking saving points. And the more snaps you make an offense take, the more the chance they have to get a penalty, a holding, etc. So I thought this was a great job. I also thought it deflated the Dolphins a little bit, because of course when he gets in the secondary, you assume he's gone. So great speed. He's been a great addition to the secondary. From day one, I thought he was a great trade schematically. I thought Greg Newsome is going to be really good in Jacksonville because he's better in zone. Campbell's a better man guy and a better guy in terms of being in your face and things like that. So he's been a solid pickup, and he'll only get better. He's an elite talent.
And by the way, I think I said this was on the Dolphins' first drive of the game. It was actually their second drive of the game, just to clarify that. I want to go to the other play on defense, and there was a number of things that I think we could have highlighted from that side of the ball, but we specifically picked the interception, the second interception that the defense made in the second half, where Quinshon Judkins came up with the ball, returns it to the 2-yard line to set up the offense. But I think this play to me, Lance, encapsulated a lot of what Jim Schwartz was kind of doing throughout the game, with just different looks he was kind of showing, different pressures he was bringing. What did you see in this play, and what did you kind of like in terms of the way that they executed it to force the turnover here, and then obviously give the offense a sort of gimme touchdown one play later?
Well, I would say this. So what you have is what – you always tell coaches you have to, they've struggled a little bit defensively for how good they've been this year. They've been in a base 4 front. You got to give them a lot of credit. They played some different fronts. They twist, they stunted. They also did a lot of simulated blitzes. And what a simulated blitz is, if you don't know, it's very simple. You're simulating like you're bringing 5 or 6 or 7 guys, but in the end, you only bring 4. And what you try to do is you try to overload a side, which is what they did here with Delpit. So if you look at the play, we'll look at the defensive lineman first. Okay, down at the bottom, Alex Wright is going to rush wide. Now, Mason Graham, we talk about PFF and we talk about things that go unnoticed. This would be one that he'll get a minus on because it gets doubled, but he absolutely does his job. He's going to rip through the left shoulder of the right guard, and he's going to occupy both the left guard and the center, which is going to open that B gap up, and you saw how Delpit ran free. Now, attention to detail, right? Here's what attention to detail means in the NFL. If you look at that linebacker, Schlesinger, number 49 there, see how he's closer to the line of scrimmage? If you watch the film, and it's on my Instagram and it's on my X, watch what he does. He's going to gain the eyes of the center, which is going to force the center to slide left because he thinks Schlesinger might come. He's only doing that because he wants to occupy that center. Now, as the center looks over at Schlesinger, all of a sudden Mason Graham just slams into him. So Mason Graham is doing his job by simply getting doubled. Now, what they do, they simulate the pressures. The Malik Collins is going to drop in the middle of the field and take down the check down. And then obviously Miles is going to rush off the edge. But as the play goes along, it just ends up being a 4-3 cover 3. You're going to get Miles Harden's going to be in that flat. Schlesinger is going to drop the hook curl. You're going to get Delpit. He's going to come down. Jenkins showing a cover 3. He's actually going to come down and replace Delpit, which should have been Tua's key. And then you get Ward, who's over the top. So you get the three deep. And then you get Delpit coming through the B gap, opened up by Mason Graham. You get Malik Collins as a spy, and you get that mass pressure. And then obviously Jenkins just plays center field, and Tua throws it up for grabs for some reason. But this is all set up by the simulated pressure. And this is really a nice job by Mason Graham, that rookie, occupying both the right guard and the center, opening up for Delpit. So if you think about it, the 2 rookies made the play for Delpit.
Yeah.
They opened up, you got Graham, who took the center and the guard, and you got Schlesinger, who purposely, you see it on film, he purposely gets the eyes of that center. Now that center's in a bind. So really nice job, attention to detail by the defense. Nice job by Schwartz all day with Jenkins and Delpit and those guys in the box. They got after it all day.
Yeah, I love that play so much. And like I said, I do think it encapsulated the different looks that Jim Schwartz was throwing at the Dolphins and at Tua. The Browns run a ton of man. We know that, but they ran some zone more often on Sunday, I should say, than they normally do. And they were just showing Miami some different things that they maybe didn't see on tape. And it paid off. It paid off with the 3 interceptions, the 4 turnovers in total. It was a really nicely designed game plan, I think, by Jim Schwartz, which is obviously why Kevin Stefanski gave him the game ball after the game with no shirt on. So that was kind of funny. We have one final segment left with Lance. We're going to take a look ahead to what the Patriots bring to the table, and we'll look back one more time on this past weekend's win. I want Lance's coaching perspective on how this win can sort of propel this team moving forward. We'll get his thoughts on that coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL season is obviously well underway. FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff each and every single week with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's nothing better than following the NFL season with FanDuel, and frankly, the best part is they have options for however you like to bet. Maybe you're a prop bet person and you want to bet, I don't know, Quinshon Judkins just had a 3-touchdown game. Maybe you want to play the over on him getting 1 or 2 touchdowns next week and bet on that. Or you can take that prop, that player's benchmark, and pair it with a few other props, maybe throw a money line on there as well and build out a same game parlay. You can also just simply play the money line in real time as the action unfolds. The options are endless, and it's what makes every game, whether it's your team playing or not, even more exciting. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Lance. This win, we talked so much last week about some of the heat that Kevin Stefanski was under after the loss to the Steelers. How, I thought there were some things in that game that felt a little, troubling from his perspective, getting away from the run too early, and just the fact that the team remains so undisciplined. But they come out on Sunday against Miami and just absolutely blitz them, figuratively and literally. And to me, this was a telling performance because it showed you sort of a peek into the psyche of that locker room and the fact that those guys did not quit on Kevin Stefanski. So with that in mind and understanding what that kind of means for him and for this team moving forward, what can a win like this do to maybe turn things around a little bit for this Browns team as they continue down what's obviously, I don't know that we would call the schedule easy, but they continue down this schedule that gets a little bit lighter from what they had those first few games of the season?
Well, you just said it best. One is I think you got to give Kevin Stefanski and Jim Schwartz some credit, right? So they went out and they adjusted some things. Kevin went more back to his gap schemes on offense, power, counter. They ran a couple pin and pulls. So he's going down swinging with I always tell people he's going down swinging with his bullets, and I like that. Then Jim Schwartz did the same thing. He's had a great defensive year, And when you listen to those guys and you watch them play, there's two ways to look at that defense right now. A lot of people, it's like a fan base, right? You can either do two things. You can either complain about the offense and say, we're doing our part, you're not. But the way I watch that defense play is I think they say to themselves, hey, we got to do more. Now, it's not right, and you want the offense is going to have to play better. But when you have that mentality, that really helps. And you just saw two teams that were 1-5, one that has not lost a locker room and one that has. Because that was a really poor performance by the Miami Dolphins. They did not look interested at all at being out there. So I thought the effort was great. I thought the adjustments were great. Now, going what it does for next week. I always feel like football, the hardest thing about football is when you lose or when you win, you got to wait a whole week. The thing, I don't think it has any impact on the New England Patriots next Sunday, but I do think it has a ton of impact on today, Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Why? Because you're just a little fresher. You're not as sore. Food tastes a little bit better. And it sounds kind of silly, but that energy you have. And as a head coach, you go in there and you say, Miles wanted he wanted some one-on-ones. Well, I think Schwartz said, all right, Miles, we're going to move you a defensive tackle. We're going to play some odd front. I'm going to put you at the backer once in a while. We're going to do some different things with you. We're going to bring 5-man pressures, which is going to force them to block you man on man. We're going to bring some 6-man pressures. We're going to do some simulated pressures so they think you're one, he basically listened to his guys, which is a telling thing. Offensively, we're going to go back to gap. So I just think the team responded. They have not hung their head. They've played really hard each week. There's a lot of rookies who are impacting this team, but for me, it just makes the week, the attention to detail in meetings, the attention to detail out in your walkthroughs, when you're practicing, everything's a little bit easier when you after a win. It's a little bit harder. And when you're the head coach and you stand in front of your team, you now have, hey guys, this works. We talked, we worked together. This works. So you have a little bit more buy-in, a little bit more investment, because you can say whatever you want. But if you're getting your what kicked every week, they tune you out from high school to pro.
Yeah, and it sounded like, I know Joe Bitonio talked after the game about Stefanski kind of laying into him a little bit after the Steelers lost, and it sounded like, whatever he needed to do to make his message clear and sort of still keep that message fresh, it worked. And I think that's kind of the mark of a good coach too, is the ability to bring out the best in your team when things aren't going well and still have their ear and have them playing motivated football. And we saw that on Sunday for sure. So I think this did a lot for silencing some of that noise, at least for now. That doesn't mean it goes away completely or that it won't pop back up. But, I think for now, this was a pretty telling win for him and for his team. Lance, Mike Vrabel's reputation precedes him. Coaches a very physical team wherever he's been. What are the early sort of returns that you see as you're starting to dive in a little bit to the tape on this New England Patriots team that awaits the Browns in Week 8?
Well, one of my favorite players break down over the last 4 or 5 years has been Robert Spillane when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't think there's a guy who fits Vrabel's mindset. I've known Vrabel since he back in his Walsh days. He was friends with a couple of my buddies at Kent. So I've known him for a long time, and he's as authentic as it gets. Now, what people don't understand is it's just like when, the thing about Stefanski getting after him a little bit, that's because he stays calm when things get hectic. So when he screams and yells, people listen because he's not always doing it. So staying true to himself, but changing it up a little bit. I agree with you on that. Now, obviously Vrabel's a little bit more emotional. He's a little bit more hands-on. There's different ways to do it, and there's different ways to be successful. His teams are going to be very tough, but he's an attention to detail guy. He's a Belichick guy. So they're going to line up right. You're going to have to beat them. He's going to take away short passes from Dillon. He's going to crowd the line of scrimmage for Judkins. He's going to make the Browns do something different. And this is going to be a big week for Dillon trying to stretch the field because he's going to have to, and they're going to dare him to. And that also has to do with protection and receivers, and there's a lot more going into it. But, yeah, they're a physical team. They have a really good corner. Like I said, Spillane is outstanding. May on offense is a quarterback who's kind of on that fringe of becoming an elite guy in the next year or two. But they're very beatable. He's still a young guy. And if the Browns are going to stay with this simulated pressure and do different things, that's one of the things you can do with a veteran offense and defense line is you can do some different stuff. So I understand this is going to be a challenge, but I look at it differently. This is going to be a challenge for the Patriots as well. They got to block this Browns defense that's playing with their hair on fire. So I don't know. We'll see. I think it's a good matchup. I don't think the Browns are going to get out tough. I think this is going to come down to execution, because Mike Vrabel's teams are going to execute.
That's well said, and some really good insight into what sort of awaits the Browns. They're coming up down the pike in week 8. Guys, I hope if you haven't done so already that you follow Lance on social media at Lance Reisland. You can read a lot of his work with the X's and O's breakdowns each week over at cleveland.com. He also is a host on game days at 92 Through the Fan on the pregame show. I'm giving you all the plugs, Lance, because I want people to jump in because I value these conversations. I hope that the audience does as well, and that you always walk away from these feeling like you learned something from Lance, and it's why we're doing it all throughout the season. So if you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Make sure for your second listen, you check out Locked On NFL, which you get twice a day, every day during the week. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I always like to remind you to keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being every day or at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you again on Wednesday as we get closer and closer to week 8. Take it easy, Cleveland.